Okay, so let's talk about some similarities and differences between our answers for A 1, 2, and 3 and B 1, 2, and 3. I have here just the number sentences, and I want to compare them. I see that for A, we wrote down 8 divided by 4 is equal to 2, because we had 8 of something, we split it up into 4 groups, and we had 2. But if I look over here at the multiplication, I see 8 times 1/4 is also equal to 2. I think that's pretty interesting that they both have the same answer. I want to kind of compare the two. I noticed that the first number in both of these number sentences remain the same. And I also noticed that the answers remain the same. But these numbers look a little different. I'm wondering if they would look more similar if I turned this whole number into a fraction. And remember, we talked about that. We said that this is representative of 4 wholes, okay? And this 1 would be how many pieces in the whole. This is how many pieces are shaded. If I have 4 out of this 1 shaded, I have 4 wholes. So now they look a little bit more alike, but they're still a little different. Let's take a look at number 2. Number 2 says 1 divided by 4 is equal to 1/4, okay? Now, number 2 for B says 1 times 1/4 is equal to 1/4. Well, I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the top. I'm noticing that this number here, they look the same in both problems. I'm noticing that the answer, they also look the same. But again, that second number, it seems like it's a little different. What if I turn this into a fraction? It looks a little bit more alike, but it's still different. It's still different. Okay, so let's take a look at this last one. This says 3 divided by 4. We figured out it was 3/4, okay? And this one says 1/4 times 3. Well, I know that there is such a thing called the commutative property of multiplication, which means that 1 times 5, which we know is 5, is the same thing as 5 times 1. Okay, I can switch these two numbers around and it wouldn't change my answer. So I think I'm going to do that here. I think instead of saying 1/4 times 3, I think I would like to say 3 times 1/4. Okay, 3 times 1/4. And now I can see, oh, okay, so they both have the same first number. And I do know that this is 3/4. The answer is 3/4. So they both have the same answer. But again, it's that middle number. What if I turn this into a fraction? Would that help? I kind of am noticing a difference here. Let's talk about fractions for a moment. Okay, fractions. We know that the numerator is the amount of pieces that are shaded. Let's just say there's 3 pieces shaded, okay? Let's use our last answer as the example. And the denominator is how many pieces in the whole. So this is really quickly showing that there's 3 pieces shaded, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces in the whole, okay? There's such a thing called a reciprocal. A reciprocal is where you kind of turn everything upside down, where you take the numerator and turn it into the denominator, and you take the denominator and turn it into the numerator. So if I have a reciprocal, I'm kind of flipping things around. So the reciprocal of 3/4 would be 4/3. Okay, look in here. I kind of see a reciprocal going on. I'm noticing that 4 ones, well, if I flip that over, if I make the denominator into the numerator and the numerator into the denominator, well, that looks like 1/4. Okay, well, what about here? 4 wholes. If I flip it around, it looks like 1/4. And then same thing here, 4 wholes. If I flip it around, it looks like 1/4. I'm kind of noticing a pattern. It kind of looks like maybe that if I take a number and I divide it by another number, I get an answer. And it seems like it's the same answer as when I take a number and I multiply by its reciprocal. I'm just taking it and I'm flipping it upside down. Well, let's test it. Let's test out our theory. Okay, so what if we have something like 2 divided by 4? Well, I know that's going to be a fraction because I only have 2 wholes and I have to divide it into 4 different groups, okay? So if I have 2 of something and I divide these 2 into 4, 1, 2, 3, so now each one of these has a 4th in it. So this is 1/4 and this is 1/4. And the 2 of those together equals 2/4. And 2/4, if I were to draw that as a picture, 2/4 is the same thing as a half. Okay, same thing as a half. So this is equal to a half. So 2 divided by 4 is equal to a half. I'm wondering if 2 divided by 4 is equal to a half, what would 2 times the reciprocal of 4 be? The reciprocal of 4, is that also going to be a half? Well, let's find out with a picture. If I have 1/4, so I have 1/4. Let me split this into fourths. 1, 2, 3. So here's 1/4 right here. But I have 2 of them. So I have 2 1/4. How much is that going to be? Well, 1/4 plus 1/4 is equal to 2/4, which we already said was equal to a half. It does equal into a half. I kind of feel like there's a pattern that whatever number I have, if I divide by a number, it would be the same answer as taking that same number but multiplying by its reciprocal. Let's test that theory out.